Hey guys, welcome to Quest for Tartaria. I was looking into the food processing plants and the different things, and it's just kind of odd. I mean, especially with all the alien stuff going on, I mean, it would be really smart for the global governments to create food scarcity, and I believe that's what they've been trying to do. I'll cover some stuff about 2020 and that sort of thing. But here's a little list about fires and such. 111 of 21. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it goes down to. So on this website, they account for a bunch of stuff all the way down to 99. Over 10,000 head of cattle have reportedly died in the recent Kansas heat wave. Getting shot by what? HARP technology. But anyway, like I said, welcome to Quest for Tartaria. Not good to see you guys, but I mean, I would love seeing you guys. But my brothers and sisters of Tartaria, let's dig into this stuff. Well, I'm trying to find the list of food fires from 2019 because there was like an insane amount. In 2019 and 2020 was like over 200. But I went to click this one website, not this one, this other one, and it kicked me out. Yeah, that's really weird. I wish I would have got that recorded. That was flipping nuts. All right, this is more of the 2021 stuff. I've got some 2021 stuff, 2022 stuff. That's not as much as the other website. But yeah, let's see if I can find it. If I see it again, I'm going to make sure that I click it this time. All right, even though I couldn't find that website again, I did find this. The powder bulk solids guys apparently went in there and they investigated themselves. They said, as rumored of a wave of international fires of the U.S. food plants brews on the internet, Power and Bulk Solids asked fire safety experts for their take on the theory. Okay. Claims a suspicious trend of food processing plant fires in the U.S. continues to spread on social media after a theory was debunked last week by Snoops. Of course, Snoops, you gotta listen to Snoops, and other fact-checking organizations, because the fact-checkers know what they're talking about. Prominent of the conspiracy theory are repeating a message that more than 18 fires in the U.S. food factories in recent months represent a strange stir of events. Here's some of what these armchair industrial safety experts are saying. See, those guys are armchair industrial, experts, and it's like, oh, but Snoops is not, and our fact checkers are not, because they're paid professors, communist paid professors, and all this other stuff. And they talk about the annual fires and this and that. They're alarmed, and they should be. To process our audience and the public with, to provide our audience and the public with some credible perspective of this matter, powder and bulk solids turned to the country's foremost authorities of fire hazards and natural fire, the National Fire Protection Association, Communist, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Communist, the U.S. Fire Administration, Communist. I'm telling you, they're all bought out. From what we've heard from media sources, there has been approximately 20 fires in the U.S. processing facilities in the first 4 months of 2022, which is not extreme and does not signal anything out of the ordinary. And they go on to say the recent inquiries around these fires appears to be a case of people suddenly paying attention to them and being surprised by how often they occur. And then they said, while organization does not maintain fire incident data for food processing plants specifically in analysis of let's see where it says 20. Okay. They found that the annual average of 5,308 fires at all types of manufacturing and processing facilities between 2015 and 2019. Is that per year, an annual? Yeah, so it's per year. The organization separately tallied an annual average of 961 fires at agricultural facilities, 1,115 incidents at grain or livestock storage sites, and 35 blazes at refrigerated storage facilities over the time period. Overall, fires happen more often than people think. In 2020, there were 490,500 structure fires in the U.S., and 5,308 fires occurred in all manufacturing and processing plants. As noted above, represents 1% of all U.S. fires. McKelvey said, fires that represent less than 2% of the overall fire problem are considered statistically insignificant. As a result, the number of fires for this occupation classified falls within the category. Okay, sure. Yeah, because you guys write the rules, communists. When USFA was contacted for information regarding the recent fires at food processing facilities, external affairs specialist Thomas blah 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 passage in the article, data collected by UFS blah blah blah. Okay, an average of 108,500 non-residential fires each year between 2017 and 2019. Cooking accounts for the leading cause, about 30% of those incidents. Okay, so 30% of those fires were from cooking, incidents. Misuse of material and products contribution to ignition in 31% of non-residential fires during this period. Well, guess what? 100% being the total number of fires, but 30% of those were from misuse and were legitimate fires. That's what it's telling me. Because misuse of material. So they're saying nothing to look here, people. Because 30% of those fires were caused by people working at the facilities. Well, what about the 70% of the fires, huh? What about the 70%? Oh, maybe two airplanes simultaneously, hitting, food processing plants and stuff like that. Airplane crashes and all this other stuff. Just normal stuff. Just normal stuff. But anyway, yeah. So what number did they give us, guys? So half-truths hidden in plain sight. 5,308 fires in 2020. 5,308. How many of those factories burned down? Because, I've worked at food processing factories, big, humongous concrete factories. Yeah, burning from chicken fat, burning down from the chicken fat. It's just like, okay. But, yeah. Either way, can cause you can definitely attack our food industries, raise our prices of our grocery stores, all kinds of stuff with this crap.
1,900 food production companies in the past year have been destroyed. The two largest egg manufacturers in the United States have burnt down in the past 36 hours. We've had 2 planes smash into meat processing centers. And the only commonality amongst all of them are these 2 things. They make food for Americans, and it's on American land.
Right there. And then when you try to search it on Google or anywhere, it only goes back as far as 2021. There's some 2019 stuff, but then they got rid of the 2019 stuff that was talking about 200 plus plants burning down in like 2020. And they got rid of all that stuff. You can't actually see that anymore. So I'm going to be looking for it.
Friends, I've released 2 videos on the food processing plants in the United States mysteriously catching fire over the past year. And I thought I'd just combine those 2 videos to create a comprehensive list of incidents between 2021 and June, almost July 2022. Right now, this very moment, mainstream media is running segments and articles around the clock to fact check and debunk this information, saying there's no evidence to suggest that these fires were premeditated in order to create national famine. And that's kind of like when an abusive partner gaslights you. Our own president came out and warned us about food shortages due to lockdown over the past 2 years, supply chain issues and world war. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, around the same time, came out and said the same thing about impending food shortages. The FBI came out in April with a publication warning about increased cyber attack threats on agricultural institutions. And yet, mainstream media around the clock runs these articles covering these fires at food processing plants at a rate they haven't in years previous. And then they have the audacity to turn around and say there's no evidence that these fires are intentional. Even those ones that happened last week, which are still under investigation, don't even ask about it. They're not intentional. And of course, online, they censor any information about these fires on social media, and they call it a conspiracy theory. Me, I'm not into abusive relationships. I specifically avoid those in my life. I think the most sensible approach is to give a person the information and let them decide for themselves what's going on. Because everyone who is watching right now is capable of discernment. So as you watch the following and give it consideration, here are my questions. Are these fires intentional? Are these fires coincidental? Is there a pattern forming that we should pay attention to? Is our food supply being sabotaged? If so, who is sabotaging it and why? Or is all of this a distraction from a larger issue? Hey internet friends, here on this channel we've been cataloging the strange happenings of our world for some time now. Within the span of the past year, one of the world's largest ships jammed up the Suez Canal for nearly a week. The Suez Canal being one of the world's most important trading routes. The price of fertilizers for crops have hit an all-time high. Bill Gates became the largest farmland owner in the United States. World leaders announced impending food shortages due to the war in Ukraine, with Russia and Ukraine making up more than 30% of the global wheat market, and they're considered the breadbasket of Europe. Followed by reports of the bird flu in the United States over the past month, forcing farmers to kill millions of egg-laying poultry. All of these aforementioned incidents have driven up the price of items at your grocery store. But now we shift our focus to the most recent series of strange events contributing to this price hike and potential shortage. Wondering, is it all a coincidence or something more? In some ways, it's like the ship getting stuck in the Suez was just the start, just the beginning of all these recent supply chain issues. And really, it's only escalated from there. In the last 6 months, around 20 U.S. food processing facilities have burned down. I'm going to lay them out on a timeline for you so we can look at the data and decide for ourselves if something is going on here or if there's really nothing to see, we can just move along. January 12th, 2021, Fayetteville, Illinois. The Deli Store Corporation, a processor of deli meat for military and commercial use, was destroyed by fire. No details on how the fire started. April 11, 2021. A cooker at the plant caught the whole Tyson poultry plant on fire. It went up in flames. July 26, 2021. Memphis, Tennessee. A 3-alarm fire breaks out at the Kellogg's cereal plant. Reports say fire started in the rice dryer. August 2nd, 2021, Huntsville, Alabama. Fire damages Tyson-owned feed ingredients plant. The poultry meal plant received significant damage in a fire that was said to be sparked by animal byproducts and grease. August 24th, 2021, Patax Meat Products in Cobb County, Georgia. A fire broke out at the factory, causing severe damage. I've actually been to the retail store many years ago. It's a community staple, but it was a total loss. September 13th, 2021, Grand Island, Nebraska. The headline reads, 5-alarm fire at JBS beef plant. The Grand Island Fire Department reported that the roof was on fire around 10 p.m. that night. October 20th, 2021, Tar Heel, North Carolina. A fire at the Smithfield Foods plant, allegedly started by an employee named Latasha Biddle, who set fire to the brake area. Well, she came back in 2 days later with a hammer and vandalized cars, screaming about how she was going to burn down the plant and shoot the place up before fleeing. She eventually turned herself in on an unrelated charge. November 29th, 2021, Scotts Township, Pennsylvania. The headline reads, fire erupts at a meat processing facility in Lackawanna County. No further details. December 13th, 2021, San Antonio, Texas. $100,000 of fire damage occurred to a food processing plant where a cooler had caught fire. So now we're getting into 2022, January 14th, LeCompte, Louisiana. A fire started at the Cargill Nutrina feed mill in Louisiana and burned for 12 hours. Reports of explosions seen and heard. January 31st, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. A fire tore through a fertilizer plant on the night of January 31st and continued into the next day, forcing thousands living near the plant to evacuate their homes and a university to cancel classes. Every household within a 1-mile radius was asked to evacuate because of the high chance of explosion. More than 6,500 residents were in the evacuation radius. All right, now here is where it gets interesting. If you look at the data starting in February 2022, you're going to start to notice a trend of these fires occurring more and more frequently, which is why I wanted to lay all this out on a timeline anyway. On February 3rd, Mouston, Wisconsin. Wisconsin River Meats warehouse was engulfed in fire, the old portion of the building a total loss. No details on how the fire was started. February 16th, Claypool, Indiana. The LDC said that a fire had broken out at the largest U.S. soybean processing and biodiesel plant. The cause of the fire was cited as undetermined. February 22nd, Hermiston, Oregon. A major explosion at a potato chip factory in Northwest Oregon resulted in 6 injuries, and they reported that it could hurt the supply of chips to the West Coast. Local news reports that a portable natural gas boiler exploded, causing a dramatic fire. And local firefighters said that it was the largest blaze in that area that they'd seen in a decade. March 17th, Jonesboro, Arkansas. A Hot Pockets and frozen food Nestle plant was shut down after a fire broke out in the afternoon. Firemen battled it all night, but eventually abandoned the fight because of structural concern. March 18th, Plainfield, Indiana. I wanted to include this in here too, like I've included fertilizer factory stories as well, because it all seems related. So this was a major fire at a Walmart distribution center, and inside were a variety of items, food, clothing, electronics, This was such a tremendous fire that burned for days, and no one knows what caused it. 200 firefighters worked together to put it out, and these were firefighters from 30 surrounding agencies that responded to this fire. March 24th, Belfast, Maine. It took firefighters from 10 surrounding communities to control the blaze that took over the McCrum potato processing plant. April 13th, Conway, New Hampshire. Firefighters battled a fire at East Conway Beef and Pork for 16 hours, managed to rescue the cattle even though the meat market was destroyed. April 19th, this is another one in Oregon at the headquarters of Azure Standard, the nation's premier independent distributor of organic and healthy food. It was destroyed by fire overnight. There were no injuries. The cause of the fire is unknown. April 20th, Leoti, Kansas. The Nutrient Agricultural Solutions fertilizer plant caught fire. No further details. April 21st, Covington, Georgia. A plane crashed near the General Mills plant, which, makes cereal. It's a global food company. There were no survivors of this plane crash. Not a lot of details are known about what happened. So that concludes the timeline. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts on this. I do have some lingering questions here, which led me to running a couple of searches to compare the number of plant fires, food plant fires year to year to see if this past year had an unusual amount or not. Are we focusing on this just because people are tweeting it? Are we focused? It was on Tucker Carlson. This question was brought up, and I wanted to know year to year, what it looked like. How many food plants in the United States burned down year to year? Is this an anomaly? So in 2019, this is our sample year in the United States, it would appear that there was a major fire at Newlywed Foods factory in Chicago in April, and one at a Kansas Tyson Foods beef plant in August. So 2 food plant fires that are coming up in the search for 2019. So let's compare 2019 to this past year, not counting the fertilizer fires and the Walmart distribution center fire. On our timeline we just went over, I have listed 18 incidents of food plants on fire from January 2021 to April 21st, 2022 in this video. April 22nd, nearly 3.5 million chickens were destroyed because of avian flu in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Throughout this video, you're going to notice an uptick in the amount of chickens that are being killed as we continue on, like to the tune of millions and millions of chickens and turkeys and ducks in the United States. To quote, "Stop the spread of avian flu." And it's curious to me because prepared and cooked poultry and eggs infected with avian flu are apparently safe to eat. So did they really have to go and kill all those chickens for nothing? Just waste them all? What was Hillary's backyard chicken sacrifice to Moloch not enough? We needed millions more. Hey hun, can you fact check that for us, Mackenzie? PolitiFact just published an article raging over this 95-item list of food processing plant fires and poultry culling, saying that while the whole list is true, it's absolutely not intentional. These fires were not set intentionally. There's no evidence. Really, you guys are just mean conspiracy theorists spreading dangerous conspiracies on the internet. And the same people who brought down strong nations and empires of the past would never starve millions of people to death to get control over a country. Never. April 28th was apparently a terrible day to be a chicken because in Iowa, 5.3 million egg-laying chickens were killed and 200 workers were fired at Rembrandt Farms, owned by billionaire Glenn Taylor. Side note, in the month of May, a ton of chickens, ducks, and turkeys were destroyed or killed due to the avian flu. I'm not going to go through each instance individually, but I will provide the list that puts them on a timeline. Okay, back to it. On May 2nd in Ruston, Mississippi, a fire broke out at a chicken farm in Jones County. It took out 2 chicken houses and completely destroyed the roofs, the chicken houses, everything. On May 19th, a freight train carrying limestone derailed in Jensen Beach, Florida. I included this on here because in a farm setting, lime will raise the pH of the soil and reduce the concentration of toxic aluminum, so it's very important for growing crops. 10 days later, on May 29th, a fire killed an estimated hundreds of thousands of egg-laying chickens at Forsman Farms in Howard Lake, Minnesota. According to the Forsman Farms website, the farm started in 1918, and now the 4th-generation family farm sells more than 3 million eggs a day to some of the nation's largest retailers. With this next one, it's not on the master list that's going around, but I personally wanted to add it because it affected a major resource for farmers. On May 31st, an irrigation equipment manufacturer in Wadena, Minnesota caught fire and the warehouse burned for 2 days. The building was being used by Minnesota Valley Irrigation for storage and equipment operations. Moving into June, a fire occurred at the JBS meatpacking plant in Green Bay with nearly $30,000 in damage. A day later, on June 8th, firefighters responded to a fire at the Purina feed mill in Arcola, Illinois. Then on June 9th, a major announcement took place. Officials said to combat drought, irrigation water was canceled in California, which is the #1 producer of food in the United States. So officials are barring certain cities and farms from diverting river water. River water, which was used for farmlands that grow almonds, pistachios, grapes, alfalfa for cattle, other crops. Farmers basically can't use that water anymore, and the director of water resources for the California Farm Bureau said that he hopes that these cuts don't lead to food shortages or significant hikes in food prices because he really doesn't want to rely on China or Mexico or South America to supply food to the United States. Then, a day later on June 10th, more cuts occurred in California. This time at the Smithfield Foods in Vernon. They process pork, they process hogs. They're owned by Hong Kong-based conglomerate WH Group. And Smithfield is the largest pork processor in the country by volume. They said that production costs were just too high and they shut down the plant. On June 13th, a fire occurred in Belmont, Wisconsin at the Festive Foods Processing Facility, which deals mainly in frozen food items. Those were so many F words in a row. I don't know how I just got through it, but basically the frozen food plant caught on fire. And then we arrive at the big news of yesterday, June 15th. When footage of thousands of dead cows emerged on TikTok, a TikToker by the name of Barbie Doll Henderson 1973 posted a video showing thousands of cattle dead and being piled up and lined up with a bobcat. News outlets reported on this video, but as of yet, they cannot verify that the deaths of these cows were related to the heat wave or even where the video was taken, so keep that in mind as I talk about this. But basically, the United States has seen extreme temperatures for the last couple of days, and on June 13th, the temperatures reached 108 Fahrenheit in southwest Kansas. Matthew Laura, spokesperson for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, told reporters that at least 2,000 cattle have died due to high temperatures and humidity as of June 14th. And that 2,000 figure comes from facilities that are helping ranchers dispose of the dead bodies. But my question is, it's hot everywhere, so why aren't cattle dying everywhere? Hello, this is Editing Grace. There's just an update here. The number is now closer to 10,000 cattle. So just to summarize, our administration has warned us of food shortages. Food prices are at an all-time high. After all these fires have broken out at these facilities, the FBI's cyber division published a notice warning about increased cyber attack threats on agricultural institutions. And when the everyday citizen starts to notice and discuss, the fact checkers swoop in and shame us for asking questions. And we all want to know if the number of fires between 2021 and 2022 is higher than normal in previous years. And I gave you a sample of what it was like in 2019, but to go further on this issue, the magazine of National Fire Protection Association actually wrote an article on this very topic entitled "Nothing to See Here," in which they wrote, quote, "Nothing is unusual about any of the fires that have occurred in food processing plants over the first few months of the year, although no data is kept on fires that occur strictly at food processing facilities," end quote. So then in this article, they go on to list fires that occur at industrial facilities, and they say that that number is consistent across the years. But they outright say they have no data on fires that occur at food processing facilities, so this article that has been referenced over and over by fact checkers is a giant waste of time. So fact checkers, why are you referencing this article and having like an authoritative voice when you tell us that the number of fires at these facilities is consistent when there's no data about fires that occur strictly at food processing facilities? Moving on, I got a fun fact for you. Between 1872 and 1873, over 3 million buffalo were killed in the United States. And the result of the United States genociding all these buffalo was to destroy the basis of the way of life for Native Americans who inhabited the Southern Plains. Probably where Henry Kissinger got his inspo. He probably looks back at that event and is like, oh, hell yeah. But speaking of Henry Kissinger, I just want to know if a situation is being engineered where people who are increasingly dependent on government because their own means have been exhausted, they're relying on WIC, food banks, food stamps. I want to know if a situation is being engineered where people will gladly eat what's available. Luckily for us, in Canada, the world's largest cricket production facility is officially complete as of June 2022. Aspire Foods Group new plant in London, Ontario is ready to produce 9,000 metric tons of crickets annually for human and pet consumption. Just a heads up, y'all, apparently if you have a shellfish allergy, you're likely to have a cricket allergy as well. Eat the bugs. No, I don't think I will. So as we're wrapping up here, I just want to say one thing. One more thing, okay? Most people who comment on my channel, they comment really insightful information, but I get really annoying comments that are like, you're perpetuating the doom and gloom and New World Order by covering this information, and therefore you're part of it. The controlled demolition of our economy and our food supply is happening before our eyes, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be your opinion, but it is my opinion. That's what's going down. And I've always thought that with this channel, all these things that are happening, if people were just aware, if they were conscious of what was going on, if they weren't under the whole spell, we could stop it. We could change the course. And I still believe that. So that's what I'm doing. So internet friends, what do you think? What do you think about all these incidents? The perfect storm of what they're calling avian flu, spontaneous fires, food price hikes, corporate greed, mysterious cow heat waves, and World War and its effect on our food supply. What do you think? Is it all a coincidence? Is our food supply being sabotaged? Anyway, I always look forward to reading your comments. Thank you for watching, subscribing, and supporting my channel on Patreon. Bye.